Hello, my friends. Big Mark here. Welcome back to the Secrets Behind the Red Doors. I told you I'd be back. Today I'm going to film you a nice long episode. I want you, of course, welcome back my friend Kevin right here. Say hello, Kevin. We got a lot of things to tell you about, all going back to the Bergen. Nothing but true stories. I don't care what anybody wants to talk about. We want to talk about the true stories from the past. Funny thing, I was thinking about a bunch of stories, and me and Kevin were talking last week, and he come up with a story with Willie Boy. I wanted to share it with you because it's kind of funny, and then I'll swing to another section with that story back in the Bergen, and I have a few things. But first, let me just a few things. Johnny had some unique mannerisms and actions and words. I mean, I could just tell you some of them, he used to do this with his hand. That was him when a guy would tell him a bullshit story or he didn't want to listen to it. Or Johnny like this, or, his walk. That was all just natural walk and attempts. So there's a quick true story that I want Kevin to start with his story about Willie Boy and John. So one day, Johnny gets a tip. And he sends Charlie Deke. Now remember, Charlie Deke did 20 years in jail. Was in jail with John. Charlie Deke was a little nutty, a lot of years in prison make you a little crazy. So Johnny sends him to the Trotters to bet a tip. He takes with him Billy. Now Billy, tall Billy, German guy, was funny guy, great guy. They go to the track. So race goes off. They bet the horse. They come back to neighborhood in front of Bergen. Johnny comes out of the club. He goes, "What happened?" He says, "The horse win," because back then you couldn't get the results right away. So Charlie says, "Okay, John, let me explain something to you. You know how the Trotters, the wire is tilted." What do you mean explain something? I said, "Judge, listen to me. In the Trotters you got to lean this way, and the horse are coming down the stretch, and the wire is tilted." And Johnny looks at Billy, and Billy shakes his head like, "Oh God." He says, "Yeah, go ahead, Charlie." He says, "What are you telling me?" He says, "Yeah, but you know how to Yeah, Charlie, just tell me, are we in or are we out? I don't want a story about leans and angles." "Well, John, but the wire has an angle, and I was standing..." "Charlie, are we in or are we out? I want to know the answer." Billy's like shaking his head, and this is Johnny's interaction with the guys by the club. This was just common weekly stuff. Charlie yells, "Tell me, are we in or we out?" "Oh no, the horse won. That's all. Give me the money." And he walks to the club. I mean, this is part of the personalities that were there and part of John's personalities. So that's another thing. And then another project I want to talk about is food. Johnny loved to eat. And a lot of guys around him like to eat. Right, Kev? Yeah. Who's his favorite dish? I know some of his favorite dishes. Johnny had a lot of favorite dishes. One thing I do, the man could eat and the man could hold his liquor. So I'm going to tell you what I think is one of his top favorite things. This is excluding whatever his wife Vicky made for him. I don't know. It's just in the club. Every Wednesday, they had a dinner, right, Kev, for 40, 50 people. Guys would come from all over. Little Jackie was the cook.
And Funzy. Me, and little Funzy too.
Me, Pete, Jimmy Irish, all these guys used to help set up. The constant pasta dish, probably more than anything, they used to make fileta di pomodoro. Now, everybody has their own recipe, but Jackie made it great. The funny thing about it, they used to use these long fusilli. They must have been 10 inches or even a foot long. And the pasta, I'm going to give you a little recipe here. Jackie used to go across the street to the butcher's and get the fat from the prosciutto. Not the prosciutto, just the back fat. And he used to put it in these two giant pans. And he used to melt the prosciutto fat in the pan, Kevin, for the flavor. Then we used to slice up tons of onions, put them in a tray, and put fresh plum tomatoes on it. That was one of Johnny's favorite pasta dishes. If not, made it a couple times a month. It was just natural. He loved it. Besides all the other stuff. That's what I wanted to share with you. I don't know about Cracker Barrel or this barrel or that places. I'm just telling you, from P.J. Clark's to Billy Hong's, listen, I'll tell you more, but I want Kevin to tell you a story right now about an incident with Willie Boy. You're going to laugh. Kevin, take it away.
Yeah. Well, I had the flu. and I wasn't coming to the club that Wednesday night. So Willie Boy comes to my house, and I said to him, "What happened?" "Well, you got one shoe." He said, "Well, the guy gave me a problem on Atlantic Avenue." So I hit him, and then when he went down, I kicked him, and my shoe went flying. I says, "What?" So I go back to the club, when I'm feeling better, and I tell John about it. I said, "John, we need to get Paulie's shoes." Paulie used to sell the shoes by the club and by JoJo's club, Ciro's club, used to make the route. Anyway, I tell Paulie, I need a size 9 brown right suede shoe. He says, "Oh, why?" I said, "Willie lost his shoe, and we need the shoe." So me and John turn around. Willie Boy comes in the club one day. "Hey, we found your shoe." Right? And that guy said you hit like a little girl. But we had so much fun with that, and hey, that's the
John.
time. That was John.
John loved, right? John loved to play them jokes, and people don't see, what they see on TV or what these, frauds talk about. You're not seeing a real person, and that's what we're talking about, these real stories like Willie Boy. Another story about with Willie Boy, Willie Boy, listen, Willie Boy loved Kevin, but Willie Boy Willie Boy loved young guys. He did. He was shocked around Willie Boy. But Willie Boy was probably one of the cheapest guys we ever met. You think?
Yeah, so. I want to add something on with Willie Boy. We went to the doctor, and the doctor turned around and said to him, "Listen, you got to cut out with the salt." So we go back to our club on Utica Avenue, and here he is, got a big bag of Wise potato chips. He goes in the car, and he locks the door on the car, and he's eating one. I said, "Go ahead, kill yourself. I don't care,"
Yeah.
But that was him. And then his granddaughter, Jennifer, when the U-Bet, remember U-Bet?
Yeah.
The spray bottle. I told him, "Jennifer, you got to spray your grandfather," right? We had a lot of fun with that. And John happened to walk in, and he was soaking wet, Willie. And John, "What happened to you? Would you run the block?" He says, "No, I didn't run no block. My granddaughters," Kevin tells him that, spray me with that You-Bet seltzer.
So those are some of the experiences we had. A true story with Willie Boy and John. So one Saturday, I told you a story years ago about when he wanted to hit the triple in the track. So it's Saturday. Johnny says, here's $1,000. I need you to go bet this on the horse at Aqueduct. Willie Boy's there. Hang out with Willie Boy and come back with him. I'll be back here around the club about 4 or 5 o'clock. I got to go somewhere. I go to a track with Willie Boy. And Willie Boy, in the track back then, I used to have the bet slips were real long. And Willie Boy with a pen would write all his bets, his triples on a long sheet of paper because he couldn't remember. And he'd go up the window with a stack of money betting. What happens? The 9th race comes. Willie Boy, the triple came out. And I never forget, the triple paid $489. Willie Boy's looking down his tickets in his sheet. He doesn't have the triple once. He has the triple for 200 times. Then he looks again and sees another $200 triple. All of a sudden, Willie Boy realizes, Willie, you won about $180,000.
Yeah.
So now we go to the window and collect it. They said, listen, the Brinks truck left with the money. We can give you a check. And Willie Boy says, no, a check? I put $10,000 in a window cash. I want cash back. You didn't have to wait. So they come with 2 Naira shopping bags with money in it, little shopping bags, and they have the $180,000 in cash. Willie Boy says, come on. We go back into the park. We've got to go to the club. So the picket says, I'll escort you out. And Willie Boy looks at the guy. Don't worry about it, pal. I don't need you to escort me out. We go back to the club, and Johnny's there, but we happen to be in Richie's club right around the corner from the Bergen. They were connected. It was, daytime, nighttime club. Johnny's there, bunch of guys there, they're drinking. It was right before a holiday, so Willie Boy comes in, and he says, John, could I talk to you? And he pulls John aside, and he hands him 2 wraps, $10,000 each. That's for you. Johnny says, what do you mean that's for me? That's for you. He says, what's that for? He said, I won a couple $100,000 in a racetrack. He said, Johnny looked at him and says, you won a couple $100,000 in a racetrack? He says, yeah. How how the fuck you win 200, couple hundred thousand on a racetrack? He says, only happens to you. He says, I'm going to go home. He says, I said, where's the rest of the money? It's in the car. The money's in the car, in the suit, in the shopping bag, in the front seat. The doors are locked. He says, Mark, you were with him? He says, yeah, we were waiting to cash it. He says, Willie boy, so I'm going to head back to New York, back to Brooklyn, take the money back. He says, you tipped the kid, Mark? He says, yeah, I gave him a couple $100. Couple $100? You cheap bastard. Give him $500. He looked at him, really, John? Give him $500. And Johnny winks at me. That was John. John wasn't cheap. And so, imagine a guy winning $200,000 in a racetrack.
Well, that's how he built the house.
That's how he built his house in Brooklyn. But, and these are guys that know each other since they're kids.
They're kids.
Johnny, I keep on saying it again, all them guys around there, John knew since he was a child. Not a child, to a teenager, teenager, tons of guys. And, and every story you hear from us is going to be that era. We don't want to go off, we're going to talk about the truth. We have no reason to lie. These are things that we want to show you about that man and them people. Listen, we respect them, right, Kev? I mean, listen.
100%.
Not the only guys we respect. We respect a lot of guys. We're not justifying the life or what they did. We're just justifying the man and his purpose. You guys really, and for my guys who make comments out there or send me notes, it's great. They asked about Kevin, they asked about me. Let's stay in, it's great what you see, what you're telling me. Johnny had this distinct possibility to deal with people a certain way. Now, like guys like me and Kevin who were associates, right, Kev?
That's right.
But he always showed you respect, like you were important to him, right? Right. I mean, you could walk over and talk to him. You could ask him, I would tell you a story one day. I had a date with a girl. I met this girl. I had a date with her. I wanted to take her out somewhere nice. Her family had they were successful. And Kevin, you could identify this. I'm sitting there. Saturday was his day. Saturday, hang out at the club. But Sean, can I talk to you later on, Mark? Later on. Okay, everybody leaves. Yeah, I'll talk to you. So I don't say nothing the rest of the day. About 5 o'clock, guys are filtering out. Johnny's sitting there. It's all right, Mark, come and talk to me. He remembered, see me sitting there. He says, yeah, thank you, Johnny. Takes me in the back. He says, what do you need? I didn't ask him. He says, what do you need? I said, what do you need? He says, you need something, right? You need money? I says, well, I got this date with a girl, enough said. He gives me $500, peels off $500. Now, this is 1982, 82. Peels off $500, put that in your pocket, goes to Fat Bob. Fat Bob, where you going? Taking a Carmine, Spoozo, remember, had the brown limousine. Carmine. I rented Carmine's limousine. He just got to pay for the driver. He gave me the limousine for free. He says, that's a nice touch. He says, you like the girl? She's beautiful, right? He says, all right, Carmine. He tells Bob, Fat Bob, call up Block Camellias. Call him up and tell him I got a friend of mine come, give him a table. He says he's coming, his name is Mark. He's coming with a girl. Take care, do the right thing. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. That night, I pick up the girl in limo, press, go to La Camille's, have a nice dinner. The guy's plowing. Listen, taking care of us. Bought a bottle of champagne. That's a Mr. John. And the girls look at me totally impressed. Johnny did this just to make me look good in front of this girl. You don't know that 500 game. He's all the money I had that time, but he made me look good. So now, not big deal. Come back, a tab comes. No tab. Johnny picked the tab. I said, wow. Okay, so now remember, I'm around all these guys, Kevin. You know how it is. Yep. The waiter comes, no tab. I whip out a $100 bill. I give him a $100 tip. Now, this is 1980s, a $100 tip. I feel bad. I have to pay no tab. The next day, I go to the club. Sunday, Johnny pulls up in a club. He goes, hey, Mark, come here. Let me ask you a question. Are you a millionaire? I don't know
big
about
shot.
A big shot. Big shot. You're a big shot. He loves that. You're a big shot. I says, no, why? He goes, why? Let me ask you a question. You took a girl out. You have a good time? You have fun? Yeah. You had fun with the girl? Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Let me ask you a question. You're a big shot. You got to give out $100 tips? I said, wow, that's how fast. So what happened, he must have checked that I had a good time, everything was right, because the guy thought, oh, he gave the waiter $100 tip. Johnny
Yeah,
said,
that's you're in trouble then.
I'm in trouble now, because now John's going to say, you ain't got no money. You know, you're working week to week, he says. You give the waiter a $100 tip. You're not the big shot. I'm the big shot. I did you a favor. Now, next time, you can't go in that restaurant, because every time you walk in that restaurant, you got guys expecting a big tip. $100. See what you did to yourself? Next time, think. If you're a $20, $40 tipper, be a $20, $40 tipper. But that's his mentality. I mean, it was, Kevin, I mean, listen, how many guys you think he had around him would do anything for him? Dozens.
Tons.
I mean, you've been around a lot of guys.
I want to say something. You brought up Carmine Spuzio. Carmine had a detail shop on 100th Street.
Yeah.
I bring my car there. John brings his, and we have velour seats. I said, Carmine, you know what you're doing? Well, John had to go to the city. He says, I'll use your car. You can't use my car, John. Why? My seats are soaking wet from him. So John says, so am mine. I don't know whose car he used, but, that was what happened. And then, we laughed about it later on because the guy was trying. We're trying to get him off to try to help him make money and stuff with the detail shop.
And he did. He did the guy's cars. I mean, Carmine was partners with Richie,
yes.
John's brother Richie, Gotti, and they had a little number business or book business together. But, so...
Carmine wound up in Brooklyn with us.
Yeah.
You know, and then turned around and used to say, "Oh, John's putting the bets in every day, and well, you got to get paid."
But see, like guys like this, how many guys Johnny put to work? There's a lot of guys. Like Johnny was a great guys who he's in prison with, and I'll name
the underdog.
Yeah, but I'll name for you one of them. You'll know a couple of them, but one of them you don't like. But I'll say all these guys came out in prison with John, and they weren't even street guys like hanging out associates. There was guys, Jimmy Irish, took care of Jimmy Irish for the rest of his life, right? Charlie Deke did 20 years, met John in prison. Charlie Deke, he got him in the club, gave him a piece of the club, got him involved with Pete and Jackie, and
Big
he made
Bob
him
too.
Yeah, what?
Big Bob.
Big Bob. He made all these guys earn. There was even guys, idiots.
I call him Shakedown Bob.
Shakedown Bob, yeah. How about the other guy, Jimmy the Limp? I'm going that to Jimmy the Limp. Johnny sent him to the club. The guy ended up being a little fake rat, testified against John. Not that it mattered. He didn't know John good enough to testify. But this is John.
He's a junkie.
Yeah, but this is John giving guys jobs. Usually it's the other way around. Some guys in that life, you want to come by me, go earn money and give me money. John helped guys out. And like I said, I have to tell you this side because you guys, especially the people watching my podcast, Kevin, they know. So you grew up in Ozone Park. You know what I mean?
Right.
You hung out at Ozone Park. You had a club. Where was your club by?
Right by Rockaway Boulevard, 101st Avenue.
Okay, so
on a triangle.
On a triangle. Kevin had a club by a triangle. There was the Bergen. There was our friend
Ciro's.
Social. There was Ciro's Club.
First it was JoJo's Club, then mine, then Ciro's.
Vinny Sarah's?
Then Vinny Sarah. Vinny Sarah's came later. Then was Joe Colombo had the big one.
Yeah, but then there was Johnny's Club, the Bergen,
Club, and
our
then,
friend.
and later on you had Joey Scopo's.
Joey Scopo over there by Francisco
Crystal's.
Funeral Home.
Yep.
Then on Liberty Avenue you had Fat Anthony and Tony Lee.
Anthony.
So you got to understand,
That whole neighborhood.
So, where we hung out, I mean, Kevin's a little older than me.
Take it easy there.
But
by the way, happy birthday today.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's my birthday today. I'm a young 64. Trust me. The mind's not 64, but the body's a little older than that. But so you talk about influence. We're street guys, even low-level street guys are hustling to make a buck. And you're surrounded. They say, the mob was from Howard Beach in Queens. That's where some of them lived. But you go down a strip, 101st Avenue and Liberty Avenue, you had 3 or 4 families. So the influence was high level, but the neighborhood was safe.
I got to say, my crazy days, right? John was in the car with me one day. He said, wow, that place look good. You want to do something? He says, are you crazy? Everybody knows you. We'll be pinched tomorrow.
But that was his personality.
That's his way.
If you took John seriously, like but John, if he liked you, if he
yeah.
liked you, he'd have conversations with you about anything, and that's what guys don't realize. He wasn't but. Angelo was like that.
Angelo
I mean,
was
listen,
good.
Angelo, Joey Scopo, one of the greatest guys, right? A gentleman, a tough guy. You see him come, he had a smile, he was always friendly. Joey frequented the club every day, you know.
Joey was another one. Guys came home, myself too. Says, "Here, put this in your pocket.
Yeah, I mean,
buy yourself some clothes and stuff." And he was a gentleman too.
yeah, I have to share that because that all emanated in that area there. We grew up with that. I mean, listen, I was there by the Bergen every day. But I can tell you a story. I was in a car with John one day, and tell you the insight. Now, I'm not trying to compare it, but I just want you to realize this. Something. We're in the car one day, pick you up because, listen, take a ride with me. I want to stop somewhere, and then I'm going to pull over by OTB, put a bet. And we're talking. Says, what's on your mind? So I said, you see the news. This is when Ronald Reagan was president. So Ronald Reagan's on TV with Nancy, his wife, and Frank Sinatra's with him. So I said to him, I says, hey, John, I says, Frank Sinatra, you know. He says, you know him. You met him before. He says, tons of time. He says, you know, we gave us tickets to his concert. He says, is he gonna go, does he report to somebody? Is he around? He says, well, I can tell you is this. When Frank has a problem in Florida, he goes to see guy Fat Davy in Florida. I don't know. I never met Fat Davy, but he says Fat Davy in Florida. And Fat Davy's around me. So basically, Frank's around you. Well, indirectly, you laugh. And he says, yeah, Frank got a problem. I'll help him, he says. But yeah. I said, so let me ask you a question. So since Sinatra has Reagan's ear and you got Sinatra's ear, pretty good. What would you do if you were president? What's the first thing you would do? I asked him this question. Now, this is coming from a street guy, you know, but smart, sharp. What would you do if you were president? The first thing I would do is I would bomb that Ayatollah in Iran because I promise you one day he's going to give us fits. He's going to drive us crazy for years. He hates his country. That's what I would do. Get rid of him now before he gets powerful. Imagine 2025. What's going on with Trump and Ayatollah and the Khomeini guys?
Well, you remember what John said. When I'm gone, you're going to see what happens to this country. I never forget his words saying that.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what I'm trying to get at. Because, you know, we grew up, you know, listen, you hung around a lot of guys at different crews, you know what I mean? But you knew John, you interacted because you're Willie in the neighborhood. But I'm not praising a guy. I'm just making you realize the old times of what it was. I mean, listen, we were brokesters practically. You made money, you didn't make money.
Selling Christmas trees.
But if you had a problem, right? If you had a problem, Joe, John, Angelo, Jeannie, they were there. I mean, listen, as long as you were loyal, you didn't screw up, right? You didn't get involved in drugs. You know what I mean? You didn't learn taking drugs, and you were, you know, respectful. You know, and you were a stand-up guy. Listen, they knew. For some reason, John and all the guys, Angelo and them, they could pick you out of a crowd.
No, Jeannie was smart with that.
What?
Jeannie was smart with that.
Yeah.
You know, Jeannie was a great guy.
Yeah, great guy, smart guy,
Yep.
and, you know, different
Got nervous in the car when Willie Boy used to drive. He used to say, hey, you're getting too close to that car. Watch out.
You know, but these are guys that you have to respect them, and I do. And, you know, and that's what it's about. You know, other guys could talk about what they did for a living or crime. This is not that about because you already know that. It's been publicized for years. It's old. It's like, you ever go to Daytona and see a racetrack? That's retreads. People keep on talking about retreaded stories. We're not going to talk about that. We're not here to, you know, to talk bad about anybody. We respect them, and it was an era. That era, right, Kevin? From 80s to early 90s was amazing.
Nice.
You know, me and Kevin, like, listen, you know, we did some stupid things, but not, you know, I'm talking about to make money. You know, in the upcoming shows, I'm saving it because we had to spread it out. There's a lot of stories. I'm talking about years of stories. We're going to talk about Kevin and me. I'm going to talk about a couple of things we were involved in, you know, to make money. But, you know, you did what you had to do. Listen, my man here is like a brother to me. You know, I love him. And, you know, and he grew up hard, you know. We talked about that. And, you know, I think, you know, To be around now, says, what are you, a young 73 or 74?
I'll be 74 this year.
He'd be 74. He looks, look at him. Look at him. 74. Looks like he's about 60,
Well,
69.
Like some of our friends say, you go away for a while, you'll be in shape.
Yeah, I love that. Go away, you'll be in shape. No, we could be in shape now.
I want to say, I said to Tony Gork one time in the barber shop, "Hey Tony, don't you think we should go away, turn ourselves in every 5 years?" I said they get a collar for us. We go away. I get my teeth done, my eyeglasses, my feet. Later on, they got me. They said, "Oh, you don't care." Listen, that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. I mean, so you know, when I speak of Kevin, I speak of with ultra respect. He knows that. You know, listen, we're not perfect, but all I can tell you is every story we're going to tell you from
The truth.
is going to be the truth, and it's going to be with respect. We're going to talk about guys' personalities. I want you to see inside the daily. We're going to get there inside that daily events in the Bergen, right?
Well, you see, I got to say something. People don't realize when you go away, you're 365 days a year in there, 7 days a week. You're dealing with different personalities. Who has a problem with his family? It might take it out. So when you come home, it's a whole different reality. You know, of meaning, and that's why John took a liking to a lot of people and put a lot of people to work.
Oh yeah.
You know, I remember one time you talked on. I was sick at the time. I couldn't make it here. When you talked about the pictures from the guys from sent it to John
Greenhaven.
from Greenhaven, and next to that was "Watch What You Say." We're on ultraphonic stereo. In the club.
You know,
But you know, it's like everybody that came around came from different areas and stuff, and he lifted them up. How many guys today are okay today because of John?
well, see that listen, there's an old story I say about him. He knew who he was, never denied it.
Nope.
And guys talk about he talked too much. Everybody talked. He got caught, but he expected it. It's when I hear people talk bad about like Pete and all them guys, you don't even know. How can you talk bad about a man? He didn't do no harm to you. So these guys who go up there and say, well, I was in a witness protection program. I said, why don't you go find a different living? If you can't tell the truth, to be nice. If you can't talk nice about somebody, don't speak about them at all. Don't talk about it at all. I mean, you have to lift yourselves up for this guy.
It's all about themselves.
Yeah, it's all about themselves. It's not about us. Promise you. After that videos, we maybe go have lunch. He goes home to his girl, go home to my wife. I got a lot going on. I'm going to tell you guys first. I'm going to say it because if my videos are a little gapped, he says, lately, my wife battling aggressive breast cancer. She had the surgery. She's on chemo. So bear with me. We're not going anywhere. She's going to be fine. The doctor says she's doing great. So, so it comes into, what I want to keep the flow going with you guys. That's why I need you to keep on subscribing. If I don't get to your comments, don't worry. I'm not, it's not like I'm ignoring you. When I get your comments, me and Kevin read them. I share them with them. We talk about them. You know what I mean? Speak nice.
Wait till that episode comes to Brooklyn, then. Then you'll be really interested.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen.
How many times John used to come, just drive up and pull up?
John was notorious, right, Kevin? Tell me, he just pop up.
Pop up.
He wanted to catch guys off guard.
Oh yeah.
This is the brain. This brain worked. This brain worked really well. And he had affection for Willie Boy, and Willie Boy, made him, hurt him bad.
Yep.
You know that. I'll tell you a true story, real quick. I didn't share this before. This is after Frankie DeChico was killed. There was a wake at Scott Paci Funeral Home, and it happened to be, and so I was there. The place is packed, all the surveillance and the cops across the street, of course. So all of a sudden, they had a terrorist at Scott Paci walking under the overhang, and stand up there's John, Angelo, Tommy Gambino, and I forgot who else. It wasn't Sam. It was somebody else. Stand up there, and Angelo calls me, Mark, come here. He says, tell these gentlemen here what you told us about Willie Boy, because I was in Brooklyn for a little while. John sent me to Brooklyn, and I was back in Ozone Park again. So he goes, well, I used to go by Willie Boy's, ring the bell for breakfast, and he wasn't there. So Terry, his wife, would say, oh, Willie had to go to a meeting. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning. What kind of meeting? So Angel says, see, we saw the paperwork. He's been going meeting his handler. He's an informant. I says, it's true, what I saw in court, the old court case? He says, yeah. Don't you think we're shocked too? We know the guy for 30-something years. He did, he wasn't just a standalone guy. He did a lot of, he did a lot of running around. He says, we're shocked too. He says, all right, thanks. I said, and I walked away. So, and I'm standing there in the midst of 4 or 5 guys, and I don't know if I told you the story before, but I walk away shaking my head and said, wow. He never testified, but these are disappointed guys, disappointed in the guys. So, this disappointment could run from that life to the corporate world, to your family life. When somebody lets you down, and you've known them for 30, 40 years, it affects you in different ways.
Like I said, when on one of the interviews we had, when I came home, I saw him because I was away and the trials were starting. And I said to him, what'd you do? He said, I didn't do nothing. I said, well, and I was with him all the time. Holidays, I was by his house. He wanted to come to Florida. I was in Florida at the time. And I said to him, I says, whatever. I was shocked myself. But I got to say, I got picked up, Organized Crime Task Force, brought me into the 7-5, went to the 7-5. I had Mike Corio as my lawyer, great guy. Mike was really good, good man. Turn around, they said to me, you'll never believe who our informant was. Meanwhile, Jamesy, he was there.
Jimmy
he was
Glenn.
one of them. And turn around, they said, listen, we don't want you to go back and tell Angelo or Jeannie anything. I said, you know something? Have a nice day. I'm out of here. You're going to pinch me? Pinch me. Do what you got to do. I walk, because they said, we'll never believe who our informant is. I never believed nothing of that.
Yeah, of course.
It was hard for me to swallow that. Okay? I understand people got their favorites. I understand that. Okay? And we had carte blanche.
Yeah.
We had carte blanche. Everything was in the open. And then later on, we'll get into another session with how we went down in the after hours and everything.
Hours. You got to understand something. What Kevin's talking about. This is John, who knew Willie Boy since they're teenagers, early 20s. They're kids. True story about that fact. Willie Boy was known to go with his hands. He knocked out Floyd Patterson, the heavyweight box champion. Willie Boy was a banger. So Johnny was a young up-and-coming scrapper, had a bunch of kids around him. Willie Boy they want to meet. This is a true story. Willie Boy wants to meet and duke it out with John in the schoolyard. Johnny's telling the story, but other guys telling the story. So Willie Boy's waiting sees John, says, you're Johnny Gotti? He says, Willie Boy's taking his jacket off. Come on, let's see who's the toughest guy here. So John knows Willie Boy's reputation with his hands, and Johnny boxed a little bit too. Johnny had to, control a punch. But Johnny picks up his shirt, and he's got a gun in his pocket. He pulls a gun in his hand and says, okay, you could throw your fists, I'll throw this. And Willie Boy says, you took a gun? He says, yeah. He says, who are you? He says to John. He was just, you're nuts, he says. He says, well, and they became friends after that. Willie Boy, I remember Willie Boy hanging out with Paulie Vario crew a little bit, and all them guys. Listen, so they became friends. So a little background when, there was a guy, Big Funzy. You remember Big Funzy?
Yeah, Big Funzy.
He was around the guys in Sullivan Street. Big Funzy grew up around John. He was 6'6", if not better. Big, humongous guy, was a loan shark. I think that was all he was a loan shark. But so he's telling him, when Willie Boy flipped, he's telling John, I knew he was a rat in the 60s. I knew he was a rat. So John said, what are you talking about? I was in the tombs with the guy. He was crying in the back of his cell. Nobody wants to send money to my wife. What are they doing to let me hang? He says, I knew he was a rat when then. Johnny looks at him. I said, why don't you say something? I said, I don't know. I says, you're an idiot too, Johnny Glover. You're an idiot too. Go back to your own club. But you know, that was, and he still didn't testify against John. An old friend didn't testify, right, Kevin? I could go back to his trials, like all his trials, all the guys that testified against him. Listen, there's a guy out there, Sal, you know Sal, I'm talking policey. The guy's a stone cold liar. He even admitted it in conversation with his fake movie and his fake book. He didn't hang around John at all. So
It was in a different area.
yeah, but the problem was, believe me, what we're telling me. All these guys have to make
Stories
up to make themselves look good. We don't want to look good. We look fine already. We're fine with our lives. We were compelled. And I know you people out there have been watching my videos, like the stories, because there's no hidden agenda here. As the shows come, me and Kevin, I told you, we might interact more with other people in different places. You're going to see it's morphing to something special. And I just want you to have patience with us.
Subscribe.
Kevin, I want Kevin to tell his story. Kevin, about a year later, I got the Brooklyn number. So Kevin had an after hours. Tell the story.
I had the after hours at
Where was it?
On Cropsey Avenue, Bay 50th Street, right down the block from the Esplanade. And I had it there first it was named Abracadabra. I bought it from somebody else. And then after that, I changed it to Nightcap. From Nightcap, we went to Exit 6, because that's the exit. I said to Mark one day, I said, Mark, come on down. Run the door, make some money. I had the Joker poker machines there where you pay out the money right out there. You don't have to go put the ticket in and get the barmaid to give you the money. All of a sudden, a guy and a girl comes in. I think it's one of the barmaids following. Mark lets him in the door. The last guy had a badge on. It was a lieutenant from the moral squad. He says to me, you the owner? I said, no, I'm the porter. Turned around, he says, yeah. Looked at me, he said, you ever been arrested? I never answered the question. He said, well, we don't want to do the paperwork. So he turns around, he says, well, you got a nice place, because I had upstairs too. I forgot it was an after hours, because I had live entertainment upstairs. You paid extra to go upstairs, and downstairs was the DJ. I don't know, you gave some stupid name or something, turn around. I was worried about him. I didn't care about nothing. Turn around, what do you call it? Then my friend Carmine, he had a bakery at Rossi's Bakery, and turned around, he was there talking to me about something. And he says, I know that girl. The girl was a cop. Why didn't you tell me it was a cop?
They wrecked the machine, remember?
Pete, my partner Pete at that time, turns around, was supposed to have the guy come and clean out the money, take the money out of there. Man, it was loaded. That's what got me.
Who's the only person they arrested?
My barmaid.
The barmaid.
My barmaid. I thought, don't worry about it. I'll get you out. Where's you going?
They took the barmaid.
I'll take the pinch. Who calls up? Willie Boy calls up. He says, is Kevin there? He says, yeah, what's Kevin? I don't even know what he said on the phone. He says, yeah, well, we're the cops. We're raiding the place. And they took Anita and turned around. What happened was they left the Dom Perignon behind the bar. I says, oh, my God, look at this.
See what Kevin's saying? But that incident was, Kevin was worried about me because Johnny would have got pissed off if I was there.
Without a doubt.
I didn't belong. Like Johnny had a big thing about after hours. There was an incident. There was an after hours in East New York, and we went down there. And I went down there with his son and a couple of his friends just for drinks. We came back from a nightclub and was meeting some girls there. We were young and went there. It was not far. It was down on Liberty Avenue in City Line. And, and some Spanish guy owned the place, but everybody hung out there. Well, we went down there, we hung out and drank, and the Spanish guy with one of his friends got a little stupid, and we ended up smacking him around. We did. We smacked him around, abused him. He was a jerk. We walked out. I'm telling you, 2 days later, I'm in the club, and it's 3 days later, it was a Wednesday, and Johnny says, listen, stay right here. I want to talk to you about something. He says, a guy walks in. This is John now. And a guy says to me, he goes, what's the problem? He says, yeah, some guy around me came in his after hours. I heard it was your son and a couple of guys. They smacked around the guy around me, abused him, yelled at him. You know what I mean? And they knocked out the bouncer. He says, okay. He says to me, were you there? And I'm standing around him. He says, yeah. I says, the guy was dealing drugs at the bar. We didn't want to see that. You know, the owner was passing drugs. He says, okay. So Johnny turns around and goes like this. He says, let me ask you a question. I gave you an audience. Let me tell you about what we think about guys selling drugs at bars with after hours. Didn't I always tell you to stay out? He looks at me and he says, didn't I tell you guys don't go to after hours, especially ones where you don't know who the owner is? Another thing. Okay, they're not going to go back there. But for any guy that comes to sit with me and representing people like that, don't ever come back here again and take this as your last warning. Leave my club and get out. Johnny put him in his place. You know, he says, you're a friend. You don't represent people like that. He says, friends don't represent people like that. And the guy walked out. He's from a different crew. And he looked at me, he says, what are you doing there? We were just meeting some girls there. He says, don't you understand their trouble? So the guy's dealing drugs, you get up and walk out. You don't have to abuse the guys. Well, you don't like drug dealers in the neighborhood. You know, but, you know, this is John. John had a strict, you know.
He was so right, because I felt the same way. I was on the lam for a while, and when I was on the lam, my partner, I should have named it Pete's Playpen, because he was putting that blow up his nose, and I find out, when I came back, I went ballistic. Get out.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it in there.
Listen,
I had a clean place. I had a good clientele that came in there. And, you know, John was right. One thing about John, he used to say to me, why you got that place in Bensonhurst there? Those people there, he hated them people.
Because, you know, we know, listen, like I said again, if you went by the Bergen in the summertime, I'm going to put up pictures one day. I'll show you old pictures of the old Bergen and then the 80s pictures. There was, you know, from the 4th of July down to just hanging out. You're talking about a ton of people. And, you know, I've seen them all walk in. You know, it's really, really funny. I mean, you know, Johnny, one day, pull up in a car. I think I had his car that night, dropped him off home, and I came to pick him up because he was drinking by Richie's Club that night. So I dropped him off home. He went home. He dropped himself off home. I took his car back. I picked him up. So we're driving back, and that little Dominic outside. What's it, the guy from the Riviera? The guy who used to hang out with Dom, whatever his name is?
Yeah.
And he goes,
Dominic Cataldo.
Dominic Cataldo's name was. Not, you know, he goes, and he's outside. And Johnny says, what the fuck is this motherfucker? What is this mother want?
I like Dominic.
Yeah, but what is he doing here? He's probably got another freaking problem. He says, you don't understand, Mark. They all come to me when they got a problem. Why don't he stay in his own lane? He says, you know what I mean? And he parks the car. The sit down. And he very lost the sit down or an argument. Not because he was the toughest or scariest, because he had a wicked mind. Intelligent guy, was sharp. And then he's not the only one. There's a lot of guys out there back then.
Tony Gork was the same way.
What?
Tony Gork was the same way.
Yeah, it's like his brother, Gene, or even Nicky. You got to respect these guys. Were sharp, intelligent, real men.
Don't lie to them.
What?
Tell them the truth.
So this is, you know, we're gonna just talk about these errors and stay in the lane. So my commentators, they ask questions about what do you say about, you know, this guy and that guy. Let's talk about John. You want to know about John? You want to know about the Bergen Hunter Fish Club? Anything you want to know, it's going to come out. It's going to be the truth. Anything I can answer the truth. If I can't tell you the truth, I'm not going to say it. You know, I'm not going to come up here. We're not going to criticize people. We're not going to mention the guys, no rats on the TV. I don't want them to be mentioned. It's not about them. It's not about us. It's about that era in the Bergen. You're going to love the stories. I mean, you got to stand. Me and Kevin, we talk a couple times a week. You know, we're friendly. Sometimes we go to dinner together, and we talk about. Even now, how long we know each other? 40 years or something.
40 years.
40, 41 years. I'm 64 now. Don't judge me for it. But I know I met you when I was 20, 21. So, but even now, right? Kevin, how long sometimes we talk on the phone for?
Probably about an hour and a half.
We talk about so much stories that people don't know about. They claim the same garbage. The stories are great. And I got more for you, but I'm trying to spread it out for you because I just want to come out in a time frame. I don't want to jump around because when people jump around, it doesn't, I want it to be focused. We have a plan. A lot of you know what I plan to do with this show, and just sit tight. We have, for guys who are, who sign to my Patreon, I want to post some stuff on Patreon just for you guys. If you want I would say private stories, about John and guys around, fun stories, real stories, not, but I'm going to keep them for Patreon. For if you guys want to join the VIP club for Patreon, it helps us. I mean, listen, we're not looking to make money here with this. This is to get a story out and tell the truth.
The right stories.
The right stories, and we want to keep funding it to keep the stories going so you guys enjoy it, and our club grows. I want you to be part of the Secret Behind the Red Doors. A lot of things. Intermittently in the next few days, me and Kevin are going to talk some more. We're going to get some stuff out to you, some little statements out so you know what's due, what's coming out. But we're going to stay. This is our story. The Secret Behind the Red Doors. See that? An era. A popular club.
Did you get all that weight from on Wednesday nights dinners from John?
Listen. I can tell you Saturdays. You were just saying the good lead-in because Saturday John used to order food. Ozone Pizza, guy would come, he'd order 15 pies. Ozone back then in the 80s, one of the first guys that made the upside down pizza with the sauce on top. They made it great. The guy was there, still there, the pizzeria. Been there for 40, 50 years. Grandfather, son, and grandson. We used to order 10, 15 pies. Sicilians or regulars. Guys would come and eat pizza. John if he had a craving for food, so there was a hot dog guy. Guys in Queens know him. It was Dominic's Hot Dogs by St. John's. He was parked by St. John's Cemetery on Woodhaven Boulevard. You guys who watch this know Dominic's well. They had the big hot dogs. They were out of this world. So John would say, hey, Jimmy, do me a favor. Mark, says he's going to screw it up. Jimmy, drive Mark over to Dominic's. So Johnny would take out, I forgot the price back then. They could have been $2 a hot dog for all I know, $1.50. Johnny hands me $200. Now he goes, give me 20 hot dogs with everything, 10 hot dogs with sauerkraut, and 10 hot dogs with just onions.
And chili.
50 hot dogs. So I go to Dominic's. The old man would see me, goes, uh-oh. So how many do you want? He says, he wants 50 hot dogs. This says, you got to give me about 25 minutes. He says, all right, I'll come back. And we hang out, me and Jimmy. And they used to put 4 in a hot dog. And it's like, come in with bags of trays. On the bar in the Bergen, there'd be 40, 50 hot dogs from Dominic. They were the best. Dominic's was the best. And guys would come in from Manhattan, from Jersey, some Arnold Fungi, all these guys.
Good man.
Yeah, they would come in there, have a hot dog, Johnny Mash, all these guys, they would come in there and would have a hot dog. And this is Johnny's, his inkling for food. Pizza, hot dogs.
White Castle.
There's an event at White Castle's one night, I'm going to tell you, at 2 o'clock in the morning, it will knock your socks off. I mean, listen.
We'll just come back with about 200 hamburgers.
I think there must have been 10 guys out there, Kevin, 10, 15 guys. So, to go to White Castle, I think I told the story. Imagine this, going to White Castle at 2 o'clock in the morning, ordering 100 cheeseburgers, 100 hot dogs, 100 hamburgers, and onion rings and French fries. I spent $300. I think the hamburgers were 40 cents or 30 cents back then. Now they're a little more. That, I said the pile was high in the middle street. We were having fun with it. Guys were farting and burping. And this is Johnny sitting there with a couple of other friends, not, nobodies. And this is them. So that personality you see with the 3,000 suits was broad. It was funny. It was sharp. But, there's stories you're going to see about incidents where guys came into the club, guys who broke into the club, the fireplace around the corner. I told you about burning the tree and the chairs. I could tell you a story that Johnny would drink and play cards. But the last story, I'm going to stop the show. I'm going to tell the story because Easter's coming. Easter is Sunday. Passover started. Wish everybody's family good health and everything. But this is a story I want to tell you. So it was right the Saturday before Easter. A lot of Italians, Johnny used to call them, other words, but I'll say Johnny used to call them the guineas from around the corner. But let's be honest. So there was a guy, Guido, guy Don, all these guys who were around the corner. Johnny treated them with respect, was friendly with them, bought drinks, drank with them. So guy Don comes. Johnny's in a mood for blue crawl crabs. So Guido comes back with 2 bushels. I'm talking about the old wood bushels filled with blue claws. Johnny gets Jackie. He says, Jackie, let's make a sauce. Get about 6 pounds of pasta. Make a sauce with blue claw crabs. Now, if you never ate blue claw crabs in a sauce, you're missing something. So Johnny sits there. We put the 2 tables up. We move the couch up. Take the card table up. We put the 2 tables up, and Johnny invites Guido, 10 Italians from Richie's Club with us, Pete, me, and we're sitting. The pot comes out. Guys are taking off their shirts, sitting there in this white. And so Guido comes walking the guy down. I bring 4 gallons of homemade red wine. So Johnny, besides the Bombay martinis and the Remy Martin shot with the water on the side, he liked homemade wine. So we're sitting there and we're drinking and eating. Guys are eating cracking crab and the guys laughing. And this is with Johnny, with the guys in the club, some friends, and the Italian guys around the corner. And you gotta understand something. Italian guys around the corner, they loved him because he treated them like that. And imagine how this spreads, how the guy's affection for a guy spreads. So we're sitting there, and there was a guy there called Joey. I'll tell you his nickname. He's called Joey Nerves. So Joey Nerves, degenerate gambler, and he had a drinking problem. But Joey Nerves is eating there too and drinking wine. Joey is getting wrecked. Now we're cleaning up. Everybody ate. We're having coffee. Everybody's leaving. Guys are walking out. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Guys are tired. Tomorrow is Easter Sunday. Johnny we had a couch in a Bergen. I think that time it was peach color, like doctor's couch, leather, but it was, not. So Joey falls asleep. He's out cold on the couch, Kevin. I swear to God. So we're leaving. Everything's clear. Put away. Joey's out. Johnny says, wait a minute. I got an idea. Test him. He's out cold. I mean, he drank himself into a stupor. We take his pants and his shoes off and his shirt off. Joey's not moving. He's out. We thought he was dead, but he's alive. He's out cold. We take his pants off. He's in his boxer shorts. He says, okay, now pick up the couch and put it outside on the curb in front of the club. Really? He says, yeah, put it outside on the edge of the curb, shut the lights off, lock the club. Come back here when sunlight. One of you guys to come back here. We're waiting around right now. All of a sudden now, the next day's Easter Sunday. St. Mary Gate of Heaven Church was a couple blocks away. All the people going to Mass for Easter Sunday, they're walking by. You got a guy on a couch, on a curb, in his boxer shorts, sleeping. Cop cars pull up. We're sitting there. We're parking cars across the street. We're watching. There's a cop pull up. They're waking him because, what's up? Joey gets up and looks. He's sitting there half naked. All these old ladies sitting around. That's John and his practical jokes. And so you get both sides of that. So I want you to tell a practical jokes, but also we're going to tell you that John, talk about not afraid of anybody, but, we seen him knock out guys, Kevin, and, I seen him getting guys' faces very, Johnny always taught us, if you're right, defend your right.
That's right.
Don't be an animal just for the sake of being an animal. If you're right, if you're wrong, take it like a man. You apologize, you move on to the next step. Guys criticize John. He didn't do this, he didn't do this. We can criticize guys all we want.
Nobody's perfect.
I'm not here to criticize anybody. None of them guys in the Bergen. They were, I spent a lot of years there. I respected them. And I want you to respect them for who they are, how they carry themselves. And that's all I'm asking. So when you got guys who want to talk bad about people they never met, Kevin, one thing we were very defensive about when we talk a lot, right? And we're defensive about all these clowns who talk bad about these guys they never know. And it bothers me. I mean, I don't talk bad about guys I don't know. How can you do that?
They make up their stories, Mark. They're for themselves. They're doing their own thing.
Listen, Johnny lived for three things. He lived for that life. He lived for his family, and he lived to gamble. And a little sidebar, he lived to to screw around, practical jokes, and have fun.
He was a joker.
I was a joker, and so, I don't, that's why this show was told. There's a story that had to be told. I told Kevin, I said, Kevin, I want you to be, I want you to appear on the podcast. If we go to our show, I want you to appear on the show. They want, you're going to add to it, because I know him. He's going to tell the truth. There's no reason to lie. And, I want you to understand this. So 2 things I want you to do for me and Kevin. So you want to see more? We're going to shoot more. We're going to shoot more podcasts. There's a holiday coming up this week. I want you to enjoy these shows. I want you to understand one thing. We're going to shoot more shows. We're going to have different. I'm going to put videos in, give you updates, what's going on, and things that are happening. You want to hear a story? You want to know the truth? Listen to us. We don't pay attention to the other people that are on YouTube. There's no reason for us. I wish everybody good health. I don't wish no harm on anybody. Right, Kevin? We're doing our own thing. We're here to tell the truth. So please subscribe, please like, please share. The stories are going to get better, I promise you. I mean, they're good now. I think they're good now. They're all the truth, no lies. And I also have a Patreon. The Patreon basically I set up just to make sure we keep our podcast going. Listen, nothing's free in this life. So we're booking it ourselves. We're so adamant about the stories that we're paying to get podcasts done to get this done. So, and I wish you all good health. And Kevin, want to say anything?
Happy Passover.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. And may God bless you all.
And we'll see you soon. Promise that.